Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. The internet's Rock on Spot with my review of Pet Sematary. So, for those who might be unaware, what is Pet Sematary about? Well, it's first off, it's based on a 1983 novel by Stephen King about a family that moves to a small town in Maine and find a cemetery for pets, based in their backyard. However, later on, they end up having to one of their pet cat dies, and their neighbor takes the doctor to a burial ground further in the woods, which brings the cat back. Though the cat is not the same as it was before it died. So quick opinions on the movie. I think inspired by would be a better way of putting it than based upon, because I mean, yes, it is. You got the same characters. You've got basic, some basics are there, but there's a lot of stuff that either isn't there or is mucked or is jumbled around or just flat out, or just straight up changed. Overall, it's an alright horror movie, but and it does have some good scares in it, even some good and deserved jump scares, but it relies too much on fake out jump scares and just jump scares in general. So, anyway, so who all's in it? You got Jason Clarke as Dr. Lewis Creed, a doctor from Boston who has moved to Ludlow, Maine to work at the nearby college's medical center. Amy Seimetz is his wife, Rachel Creed. She had an older sister who had spinal meningitis, who had and died of, I should say, spinal meningitis, which colors her views on death. John Lithgow as their neighbor, Judd Crandall, lifelong resident of Ludlow, widower, and is the one who first shows first one to show Lewis the burial ground. Jete Lawrence is Ellie Creed, Lewis and Rachel's daughter. She dances some. Loves her cat Winston Churchill, and is also the first member of the family to meet Judd. We got Absa Ahmed as Victor Pascal, a college student who dies early on in the time of Lewis working at the medical center. After his death, he tries to help Lewis and his family. Namely, with trying to say tries to prevent them from using the burial ground. Hugo and Lucas Lavoie is Gage Creed, who's Rachel and Lewis's infant son. Okay, so spoiler-free breakdown. Movie begins. Well, actually, the movie begins kind of with the end. We see just what has happened. What we kind of see how what everything leads to. It goes back to the beginning of the story. The Creeds arrive at their house in Ludlow, where Lewis will be working at the local college in their medical center. While unpacking, I want to say it's Lewis's first day, Ellie and Rachel see a procession of children heading into the woods in their backyard to bury a dog. Later on, Ellie goes to check out the pet cemetery, and while climbing the deadfall there, she slips and gets getting stung by a wasp because their neighbor Judd showed up and told her to get down from there. He takes care of the wasp's thing and introduces himself to Ellie and Rachel, who ends up showing up. That night, Lewis and Ellie have a talk about. Lewis, Ellie, and Rachel have a talk about death, heaven, and why animals don't live as long as people. This leads to Lewis and Rachel talking about Rachel's view, views on death and what happened to her sister, who died of spinal meningitis when Rachel was a child. Later on, a college student named Victor Pascal is brought into the medical center having been hit by. I honestly want to say it was a truck, but I'm almost certain in the movie they said a car, but I want to say he got hit by a truck. He dies on the operating table while they're trying to stabilize him. Then afterwards, he sits up and tells Lewis that the barrier must not be broken, in reference to the deadfall. Anyways, we also get kind of time passes by, and the Creeds get to know Judd. But we all, of course, Lewis does somewhat deal with having lost lost the patient basically, just the night after it happened. Anyways, the movie goes on. We skip forward to Halloween, and just before Lewis is going to take Ellie and some of her friends out trick or treating, Judd shows him that apparently Church has been hit by one of the oil tanker trucks that drive down the road in front of the Creed household and killed. Judd said, hey, Judd tells him, hey, take the kids out, and then later on the night we'll take care of Church. And so he tells Rachel what happened, and at first he's all for telling Ellie, yeah, Church got hit by a truck and died, but Rachel's like, no, don't. If anything, just tell anything, but that he died, but the truth. So they both end up agreeing, hey, we'll tell her that he ran away. Anyway, so Judd and Lewis go out into the woods. Well, they go to the pet cemetery as they're starting, as Lewis started to dig the hole for Church. Judd decides to take him to the other pet cemetery, an ancient burial ground. It's even further into the woods. And when they get there, he tells Lewis, "You gotta, you can't have any help in digging the hole for what you're burying. You got to do it all by yourself." And so he does just that. And the next morning, Ellie and Rachel try and comfort, or Lewis and Rachel try and comfort Ellie, telling her, oh yeah, Church must have run away. We'll keep an eye out for him. She says, no, he only came back because he's right. He just came out the window, and then he's right there in the closet. But he's looking a little ragged, obviously. And then, oh well. I actually forgot to mention that after Victor Pascal's death, his ghost visits Judd or Lewis in a dream and takes Lewis to the pet cemetery and shows him the deadfall and says, "Hey, bury him." Explains once again the barrier must not be crossed or broken. But eventually, though, Church's behavior gets to the point where he actually scratches Ellie, and she decides that she doesn't want Church in her room anymore. So, Lewis decides tells the family to take Church to the vet, try and figure out what's wrong with him, but he just takes him out away from the house and lets him go. Once again, yeah, he must have run away. He ran away. We skip forward again to Ellie's birthday party, and during the festivities, one of the Creed children is killed by an oil truck going down the road. After the funeral, Rachel and the surviving child go to Boston with Rachel's parents, while Lewis stays in Ludlow to take care of a few things at work. Well, that's what he tells Rachel. In reality, he means to exhume the dead child and bury them in the pet cemetery. He talks with Judd a bit. Judd is taking complete responsibility for, or claiming responsibility for everything that's happened. You know, I showed you the place. It's my fault. And once you go there, it gets its hooks in you, and it'll do anything to get you to come back. But Lewis exhumes his dead child and buries it up there. The next morning, Rachel tries to get in touch with Lewis and ends up heading back to Ludlow, where she ends up learning just what Lewis has done. And there are consequences for all. Anyway, so the ups and downs of the movie. It honestly really did manage to set up and maintain a really good, creepy atmosphere throughout. Jason Clarke did a really good job as Lewis. He definitely did a better job than Dale Midkiff did in the original adaptation. John Lithgow does a good job as Judd. I mean, not again to compare it to the original adaptation, he's not as good as Fred Gwynne was, but still quite good. The movie is well shot. The makeup effects on both Pascal and Zelda are really great. The kids, the three child actors, both all seem to be fairly decent. The characters weren't annoying, so the I guess you would say also. I guess you lump that with makeup, but when after Church comes back, it looks really good, and you can definitely just from looking at like okay, there is something up with that cat. And this is a little thing that really has no bearing on the story, but this was something I really liked, and it was a nice nod to the rest of Stephen King's work. But there's a sign when Rachel's driving back up from Boston that states that Derry is only 20 miles away. Derry, for those who may not know or might have forgotten, is the town it's the town that it takes place in. Yeah. So the downsides. So okay. I accept the fact that when a book is adapted to a film, there are going to be changes. That's fine. I can deal with that. But when the changes end up being detrimental to the story as a whole, and basically kind of making it to where a lot of it just doesn't work. You kind of have to just go back and say, you know what? Let's rewrite this so that let's rewrite this script so that it actually, so that everything can work. That means we have to basically just take the book and say, okay, well, and go through into okay, here's some dialogue, there's that dialogue, and in the appropriate places. A lot of amongst the changes were a lot of characters and relationships are omitted for no good reason that I can see, and that also has to do with plot points too. Now, props to the fact that hey, they actually did during the beginning of the climax, they actually do mention Judd's wife. But that's the best I can give it there. I was also kind of perturbed. Again, this is much like the whole thing with the Road Sign for Derry. There's no Stephen King cameo. Stephen King at least had a tendency to make cameo appearances in movies based on his work. I'd have to actually rewatch it Chapter 1 to see if he showed up or not. Like I mentioned earlier, the movie relies way too much on fake out jump scares. An example: the night after Pascal dies, when Lewis is on his way home from the medical center, he's kind of just sitting at a light, and he starts to go, and then a oil truck suddenly just barrels down in front of him. It's like you could see that. That's not just going to suddenly appear. I was just there to make everybody jump. Anyway, overall opinion, it's a decent-ish horror movie. I've seen much better horror movies that tries way too hard to be different from the source material. And while it does succeed in being different, it's not different in a good way. And that really drags it down. And so I gotta say, for a rating overall, 2 out of 5. Anywho, that's it for now. We'll be back tomorrow with a review of Shazam. After that, in a couple weeks, I will be doing a video where I compare all 3 iterations of Pet Sematary, which will be very spoilery for this version. But I'm talking, comparing the book, comparing the movie, and comparing the new movie. But like I said, that'll be in a couple weeks or so. Anywho, as always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I put up new content. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon are in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.